So I'll be talking on how to initiate a review article. So what is a review article? A review article is not an original research. What they are doing is they are compiling information from various original articles and pulling it into a single article so that it has all the information. You don't have to go through multiple sources to read about a particular topic. Now, how many types of review articles are there? There are so many types of review articles. For example, there was a article written on types of review articles. There are 14 types of review articles. So, but here we'll be mainly discussing about scoping or systematic reviews. So these are the various steps that we follow when we want to go through the process of writing a review article. So before we go on to that, let us understand original article has mainly of two types. Either it could be an observational research or it could be experimental or interventional, where you're doing an intervention and assessing its outcome. Whereas in an observational, you do not give any intervention to the patient. You observe the patient as per the natural course of his disease with or without treatment. So let us look at an intervention study. When you look at an intervention study, these are four important components that you need to address. So our randomized control trial is a type of an intervention study. So what is the population that you're dealing with? What is the intervention that you're giving? And with what are you comparing that intervention? That would be the comparison group. And then what is the outcome? So in outcome, it has to be measurable and you need to describe how you are going to measure that particular outcome. So let us take an example. So we'll read through this patiently, just the title. This is a phase 3 randomized 20-month study of bimetoprost implant in open angle glaucoma and ocular hypertension. Now, what are they doing? They are including patients. What is the population here? They're including patients with open angle glaucoma or ocular hypertension. And what are they doing? They are going to evaluate the bimetoprost implant. So that is the intervention that they are doing. So the intervention, as it has got two types here. When you go through the abstract, you'll be able to see they have used the 10 microgram implant or the 15 microgram implant. This is implanted into the anterior chamber. Now we have to compare this intervention with the standard treatment. So when we do that, it's called active controlled. So the standard treatment that they've used here is timolol maleate. So they'll divide the patients into this population with open angle glaucoma and ocular hypertension into two groups. One group will receive 10 microgram, the other group will receive 15 microgram, the other group will receive timolol in a randomized fashion. So this would be the comparison group. Suppose we compare it with the placebo, then it is called a placebo controlled, not active controlled. When we compare with the standard of care, it is called active controlled. Now, what is the outcome? So we are going to evaluate an anti-glaucoma medication. So the major outcome is IOP reduction. So they have measured outcome in two parts. One is the efficacy, the other one is the safety. Efficacy is measured in terms of IOP reduction from baseline, and safety is measured by the incidence of side effects in the three groups. Say what is the proportion of patients who developed side effects with the 10 microgram implant, what is the proportion of people who develop side effects with the 15 microgram implant, and the same with the timolol. They are going to see if there is a significant difference between these three groups. So this, when all these four parameters are compiled together, what we get would be the research question. So the research question here would be, what is the IOP change from baseline and the side effect profile? So this is the outcome of 10 microgram and 15 microgram bimetoprost implant, which is the intervention, compared to topical timolol maleate, which is the comparator in patients with open angle glaucoma and ocular hypertension. So this would be the population that you're dealing. So when you frame a research question to conduct an intervention study, it should have all the four parameters within that particular statement. So this is for an interventional study. So let us take an example of observational study. In observational, as we already discussed, we are not going to do any intervention to the patient. So we'll just see what is the outcome of patients. For example, we'll use the same study. Instead of comparing with the timolol, what they would have done is they would have just followed up patients who underwent bimetoprost implant, if that was already FDA approved. So you follow patients who received the implant and see what is the IOP reduction and what is the incidence of side effects. So here the exposure would be giving the implant and outcome would be same, like what is the IOP reduction and what is the prevalence of side effects. So they have combined the intervention and the comparator group into a common group like exposure. This exposure could be anything. It could be a risk factor. It could be a protective factor, or a treatment or a behavior, anything. We'll see an example. So let us look at this example for an observational study. Let us just look at the heading. It's a risk factors for flat antechamber requiring intervention after glaucoma drainage device implant, a retrospective case control study. So what is the population that they are dealing with? They are including patients who underwent uncomplicated Barwell glaucoma implant. So after the implant, some patients would have developed a flat antechamber, which requires an intervention. So that is the outcome. And now what they are going to do is, they are going to assess what are the risk factors that made them develop a flat antechamber. So they divided these population, those who underwent an uncomplicated Barwell implant, into two groups. One group developed the outcome, the other group did not develop a flat antechamber. And they are going to see what are the prevalence of risk factors. Say, for example, let us take gender as a risk factor. Say males have higher, suppose the proportion of males in the first group, those who developed the flat antechamber is like 30%, and those who did not develop a flat antechamber, say it's 10%, we can say there is a significantly higher proportion of males in those who developed a flat antechamber. So that's how you are going to analyze a observational study. So again, what do? We'll combine all these three components together to frame our research question. So it will be for here also I wanted to tell that one of the major exposure that they wanted to analyze was whether use of oral carbonic anhydrase inhibitors were a significant risk factor. These patients who undergo a Barwell implant, it's a non-valve device. So the tube gets ligated and patient has high IOP for the first 6 weeks. So during that time, patients are on anti-glaucoma medications. So they postulate that their hypothesis is patients, if they are taking oral carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, it is more powerful and it can cause hypotony, which extends even after the tube opening. So that is their main hypothesis. So we combine all the three components together. Does use of oral carbonic anhydrase inhibitor immediately before the tube opening lead to greater proportion of flat antechamber that requires additional intervention, which is the outcome in patients who underwent uncomplicated Barwell implant? So that would be the population that they're dealing with. So we have got all the three components here in an observational study, whereas in an interventional, we'll have 4 components. So now we'll go on to the steps of writing a review. Firstly, we'll frame a protocol. I'm not going to go into the details of the protocol. It's similar to what you do for an original article. You will have a specific set of inclusion criteria and exclusion criteria. Our main idea of writing a review article is we are going to compile various origin studies. So for example, there is a study which is already a review article, short review or a commentary or a letter to editor. We won't be using those articles to write our review article. So that would be under the exclusion criteria. We'll only include articles which are original articles. And for example, there can also be a scenario where the article is in another language, most commonly in Chinese, German, or French. So now, when you include these articles into your analysis, you should have facilities for translation of these articles. But if you're not going to have facilities for translation of these articles, it's best to put it under exclusion criteria, that you will only include articles which are written in English. Okay. So now we'll go on to the preliminary literature search. Now, how do we do a literature search? Part of which was already been covered by Kumaraguri madam here. So, but I'll again tell the same thing. So let us take an example here of non-arthritic anti-ischemic optic neuropathy. So you want to write a review article on what are the visual outcome following various treatment modalities. Now, as we know, non-arthritic AON does not have a fixed treatment plan. Some people give dexamethasone, some people give IVMP, some people just observe, some with just aspirin or vitamins. So there are various treatment modalities which have been described, and we want to see what is the visual outcome in each of these groups. So we have the 3 parts. Non-arthritic AON is the population that we're dealing with. The various treatment modalities would be the exposure, and the visual outcome is the actual outcome. Now, we have to search each of these components separately. So let us take the population, non-atretic AO1. So when we type in PubMed, so when there are multiple words, you just put it under apostrophes. So that it searches together. So when we put non-atretic AO1, how many articles we are seeing? We are seeing 304 articles. But do you think there are just 304 articles which have been described for non-atretic AO1 in literature? It won't be the case. So that's because some articles would have, so for example, see, ischemic word is spelled differently in different countries. So for example, we'll put non-arthritic ischemic anti-ischemic aortic neuropathy with AE here. We see we got 157 articles here. Okay. So some studies would have just put the acronyms. So we put non-arthritic A1, we see 77 articles. And while we are doing this literature search, we'll also come across a few studies which are described the population differently. So here they have mentioned non-arthritic ischemic optic neuropathy. The word anterior is missing. So when you go into the article and see, they have actually described anterior ischemic optic neuropathy, but it is not mentioned in the title. We do not want to exclude such articles because we have followed a strict inclusion criteria. We just searched for non-arthritic AON. So we have to include this statement also into our literature search. So when I searched for non-arthritic ischemic optic neuropathy, we see there are 95 results here. Let us remove this hyphen. So what happens when we remove the hyphen? We see there are 144 articles. Okay. So the important thing here is we need to find out all possible ways in which a particular word has been described in literature and put it into our search term. So here we have included all different options and we put OR as a Boolean operator. When we put OR as a Boolean operator, it includes all articles which have either described non-arthritic A1 with hyphen, without hyphen, with AE, with E, without expanding the acronyms. So ultimately what we get is 2008 articles. If it's stuck on to non-arthritic AON alone, we would have been there with only 354 articles and we have missed the rest 1700. So this is for population. We need to do the same for in exposure and we need to do the same for outcome. So here we see for exposure, we try to put the different search terms. We see there are 4 million articles. And when we wanted to put outcome, we see there are around 3 lakhs articles. Now, when we do the literature search, we also have to be, we don't want to have redundant information also there. So we have already searched for visual acuity, right? So when we search for best corrected visual acuity, it will, if you search for visual acuity, it will also encompass articles which have described best corrected visual acuity because the word visual acuity is already there. Again, same for uncorrected visual acuity. When you're already searching for visual acuity, those which have just described uncorrected visual acuity will also be there. So we don't need these two words. We don't need repetition. So even if we remove this, we'll get the same number of articles. Now what we do is we need articles which have described non-arthritic A1 with this particular exposure and this particular outcome. So we put AND as a Boolean operator and combine all these three together. What we are left is 177 articles only. Okay. So this is how we do a literature search. Now this is in PubMed alone. So here another important thing that we need to notice, we should not forget this parenthesis. So this is the population, you put parenthesis and then put AND. Otherwise you won't get the accurate information. And this is the exposure, again put close the parenthesis, put AND, open and close for the outcome. So this would be the final search term for you. Then this is for PubMed. So what we do is we need to export these articles to a particular file. So what we do is we'll send to citation manager. On top we have this icons and then you click all results on this particular page and create a file. You click create file, it will get downloaded as an nbib file. Now this you can upload onto Zotero and read through as we saw in the afternoon. So then since there is only one database that we searched for writing any review article, at least we need to search for 3 databases. So this is PubMed, which is a part of Medline. So there is other databases, very important ones like Embase or Scopus or Web of Science. The Cochrane library is also there. The other common one is a Google Scholar. So for us, the free versions are only PubMed and Google Scholar. Sometimes when you review articles, they give access to Embase or Scopus for a month or so. So the next is we arrive at a specific number of articles. So for example, in PubMed you saw 177 articles. Embase you search, you'll get some 300 articles. Scopus will give some more. So when we combine all these together, we get close to 900 articles. But the thing is, whatever was there in PubMed could also be there in Embase or Scopus. So there will be a lot of repetitions here. So we need to remove the repetitions. So that would be the next step, removing the duplicates. Now, one of the ways of removing duplicates is to use Zotero. So what we do is in Zotero, we already exported that nbib file like in PubMed. So similarly, we can export other files like in Scopus also we'll get one file like that. In Embase also we'll get a file like that. So we'll import from Zotero. So it will ask what file you want to import. You import this nbib file that is there in your desktop or wherever, and it will get imported. So in Zotero, you will have it like this. So you'll have the title, you'll have the author, first author et al, and it will also have the abstract. Now, this is for just one. In the same folder, you also upload the file from other databases. So ultimately, you will end up with all the 930 articles into a particular folder. And then Zotero has got the option of searching for duplicate items. So you click duplicate items, it will highlight. So whichever is duplicate, it will get highlighted automatically. So what you need to do is merge two items, it will get automatically merged. So then what happens is you will get a final version. Say for example, out of the 900, say 500 are duplicates. So the rest 400 will be there. There can be triplicates or even more than that also. So then what you do is after all the duplicates are removed, you export the collection into a particular file. There are a lot of options. You could use any option, but BibTeX and RAS format are quite commonly used, but it doesn't actually really matter. And the next step is the screening of titles and abstracts. So now we have arrived at a particular number of articles, but we need to see whether it fits into our inclusion and exclusion criteria. So we would have had some strict inclusion criteria. So for that, we need to see despite all these searches, we see one of the articles is optic disc drusen in children. So this has come after all the screening process that we have done. So we don't need articles like this. So we need to exclude. So this can be done in one of the two ways. So either Ryan, which is totally free, Covidence, it is like partially free. So screening is much easier using Ryan. So what we need to do is there is a file that you exported from Zotero. So there is a one file which has got those 400 articles. So you upload that file onto Ryan. So then you'll similar to Zotero, we'll have this. So once you upload, you'll get all the article names, authors, and here we'll have the abstract, title and abstract. So you just have to click include or exclude continuously. So this is an intravitreal triamcinolone injection in non-dendritic AO1, a retrospective report. So whether it comes into our inclusion or exclusion criteria. So they have described a particular method of treatment in our required population, and they have also analyzed the visual outcome. So logMAR visual acuity is seen. So this comes under the inclusion criteria. So you click include. Usually screening title itself will give the required information. You don't have to really go through the abstracts, but if in case of doubt, we can go through the abstracts. So you just click include. For example, next article we have arthritic AON, an update. So firstly, it is about arthritic AON, which is not in our inclusion criteria. And secondly, it's an review article. Here they have mentioned this review. So we are not going to include review articles into our new review. So we need to exclude this. So here the thing is, in Ryan, there is one advantage here. So generally the screening in abstract is done by two people, and two people will be blinded to one another. Here you can see the blinds are on. So I will be reviewing, my friend will also be reviewing. So there will be articles which both of us would have agreed to exclude. there will be articles which both of us have agreed to include, but there will be some articles which I would have excluded, but my friend would have included, and vice versa. So those are called the conflicts. So we need to go through the full text and resolve those conflicts. So before we go on to the entire set, we need to see whether there is agreement between the reviewers. Now, how do we do that? Is we are going to have a small exercise. Say, this is what say we'll take a small sample. Say there were 900 articles which we needed to review, but we are going to take a small sample of 100 articles, and you are going to review that first. So reviewer 1, we have included reviewer 1 and reviewer 2 both have included 16. Reviewer 1 and reviewer 2 both have excluded 78. But there are 3 articles which was included by reviewer 1 but excluded by reviewer 2. And these 3 were excluded by reviewer 1 but included by reviewer 2. Right? So these are called the conflicts. Now what we need to do is we need to find the expected proportion. So this is a sum here. Expected proportion is given by one formula, row total by sample size into column total by sample size. So for this box, what would be the expected proportion? Patiently, can you just, you don't have to calculate and give the final value, just tell me what into what and what into what. 19 by 100 into 19 by 100, right? So this box will be 19 by 100 into 19 by 100. So that would be a particular proportion. So what about this box? 19 by 100 into 81 by 100. So we'll get a particular proportion here. So this box will again be 19 by 100 into, 81 by 100 into 19 by 100. And this box? Yes, 81 by 100 into 81 by 100. So, but since this is proportion, when we add all these together, we'll get 1, right? So this is the expected proportion now. Now, let us see what is the observed agreement. So out of these 100 articles, 16 plus 78 were observed, were agreed upon by both reviewers. So this will be like out of the 100 articles, 94 were agreed upon. So observed agreement is 0.94. What is the expected agreement? You just add these two. Expected agreement would be like 0.03 plus 0.65, like divided by 1, it is 0.69. It's not over yet. So then we need to calculate the Cohen's kappa, which is given by the formula observed minus expected by 1 minus expected. That's all. Last. Yes, it is very time consuming process. So here, this is the last formula. So just observed minus expected by 1 minus expected. So it is 0.94 minus 0.69 by 1 minus 0.69. So what we get is 0.805. Okay. So this is called the Cohen's kappa. A kappa value more than 0.8, 0.75 is excellent. If it's between 0.4 to 0.75, it's okay. So when we do the initial sample of 100 people, we need to make sure that we have got good agreement between the reviewers. So only then we need to go to the full sample. So that's why initially we took a small sample of 100 and did the basic analysis and to see whether reviewers are agreeing upon. If there are a lot of conflicts, then it means our inclusion exclusion criteria are not clear. So we need to redefine our inclusion exclusion criteria, then do with another sample, make sure our Cohen's kappa is more than 0.75, and then proceed with the full title and abstract screening. So after this, we'll complete screening of all searched articles. So after we do that, still there will be some conflicts because the agreement is not 100%. So there will be conflicts. So for those conflicts, what you do is you go to the full text, you discuss between the both of you and see whether you want to include or you want to exclude. If both of you have some issues, you can have a third arbitrator also and then finalize whether to include or exclude. So now we have got a final list of articles from which you are going to extract the data. So this is the Prisma flowchart that madam also had described for a review article. So firstly, this is another sample. So say, for example, through the databases, all databases, we got 3,245 articles. Out of these, you what did you put? First, you put all the articles into Zotero, remove duplicates. So you removed 1,200. And then what you did was you assessed the title and abstract of the remaining 2,000 articles. And you see, most of them gets eliminated because of a strict inclusion and exclusion criteria. So say 1,900 were excluded. So you only have 52 articles from which you need to extract the data. So out of these 52 articles, when you go through the full text, that is called the full text review. So when you go through the full text, you see some of them are conference abstracts. So again, we don't include them. And some articles are not in English. Sometimes full text you don't really get because they're quite old articles. Ultimately, a few gets excluded like this. And finally, you will have 40 articles, say a final list for data extraction. Now, this is a long process. During the course, there could be some articles which have been published. So you can add additional studies which are very recent. And also, when you go through these 40 articles, it will have references. When you go through the references, there will be 1 or 2 articles which you have missed. So you can add those articles also in between. So this would be the final number. So the compiling all this information, this is called the Prisma flowchart, which has to be there for all reviews. So then what we do is we do data extraction. So data extraction, the ideally simple way would be to go through you create a proforma of what information you need. You go through the full text of the article, you copy from the article onto your proforma. But it becomes very tedious because you need to swap between different windows. So the other easier option would be to use this Covidence. Covidence is a free software where it allows you to do one review. Then it becomes expensive. I mean, you have to subscribe. So here, you would have created the proforma in Covidence based on the information that you need. For example, I wanted to have the lead author's name, title, or country in which the study was conducted. So these are things that I had created. So the articles opens on the left side, the proforma opens on the right side. So what you need to do is you just copy it, highlight it, copy and drag it onto this. So it is much simpler. And it also allows you to do one more thing. Here again, data extraction is done by 2 different people and they are blinded to one another. It should not be done by one person because there can be mistakes. So always there should be 2 people. And Covidence allows you to check whether there is a discrepancy between the 2 people. Say, for example, I have extracted this data. Another reviewer has extracted this data. So these two, they are matching. These two are matching. For example, these two, they are not matching because he has given the state also. So then I have to choose which one I need. So I will click this one. So then this decision required gets disappeared. So this would be the final decision that we have. Then it also gives an option for converting to Excel. So you just convert to Excel and we have a final Excel sheet. So the proforma titles will be on top. All the 40 articles will be along the rows. And then we can do the data analysis. So this is how we proceed with the review article. Thank you.